Hello, and welcome to today's session on career planning. My name is Beth. As a member of the Student Academic Success team at Ambrose, it's my goal to see you thrive not only in your studies here at Ambrose, but also in whatever steps you take next. Whether you get a job, launch a business, build a family, pursue more education, or volunteer in your community, we want to make sure that you're equipped to serve effectively and joyfully. At Ambrose, we believe that education makes us better people. It builds character and compassion. It develops our social, spiritual, and even physical capabilities, as well as our mental capabilities. It's an opportunity for genuinely holistic development. One part of this picture is our development as professionals. Education gives us an important opportunity to prepare for the workplace. Among other things, education provides us knowledge in our subject area. It helps us to develop transferable skills, and it gives us credentials to show what we've learned, but it also helps us build professional networks. By studying at Ambrose, you're already taking a huge step towards developing a successful and life-giving career. But the more intentionally you prepare for your career, the better. Today, we want to share some tips for how you can use your time in university most effectively to plan for the next steps afterwards. To help us get started, I've compiled a list of frequently asked questions, things that students often wonder about the job market. And these questions cover 4 areas. Our 4 areas are, first, choosing a career path. Second, today's economy. Third, the big transition, that is the jump from university into the workforce. And then fourth, something that's very much on our mind today, the pandemic job market. We hope that these questions will get you thinking too. If you're joining us live, we'd love to hear from you at any point during the session, so you can just sign into YouTube and type your comments and questions into the live chat. We'll pause after each of the 4 rounds to hear your comments and address your questions. Now, to dig into this topic today, we're delighted to have the opportunity to speak to Cecilia Moore from the Calgary Youth Employment Centre. Cecilia has worked in career development for many years and spends a lot of her time helping students transition from post-secondary studies into the workplace. So she's incredibly familiar with that transition and with where students are at. She's also been very helpful at Ambrose in supporting students through workshops such as this and through free individual consultations. Now, to help Cecilia and I get to know you, please do introduce yourself in the live chat. We'd love to know your name, what program you're in, and what career options you're considering. And then while you're responding in the chat, we'll get started with our first round of questions. So while we're getting started, please feel free to share your name, your program, and then anything about your career options that you'd like to share with us, what you're thinking about. So here's our first round of questions. Choosing a career path. This round of questions is about career planning more broadly. How do you know what career you should pursue? What if you don't have a strong sense of direction? Some of these questions might sound familiar to you. So our first question here is, I've started a degree in whatever, business or theology, but I'm not really sure I like it anymore. I also don't think it'll get me into a field that I'll actually enjoy. What should I do? And then the second question, my parents think I'd be a great whatever, teacher, doctor, pool cleaner, surgeon, whatever, but I really want to be something else. What should I do? Cecilia, when you get these questions, what advice do you give students?
Beth. First of all, thank you so much for having me today. I'm super excited to join you and to talk through some of these questions. So let's just jump right into that first question. I've had a lot of students over my almost 25 years that I've worked in career development, and I've seen this come up obviously more than once. Lots of times students will leave high school often and will jump into a degree stream, and then once they start, might not like the courses that they're taking, or they might hear little bits about the field and they're not so sure about it, and so there is that big question of them, what should I do next? Some students choose to soldier on, and that's absolutely fine, but some people really just feel like they need to hit the pause button, and in that case, then what do you do? So I guess first and foremost is what I would say is don't drop out of school. I mean, you've engaged in post-secondary education for a reason. Just pulling yourself out of school isn't necessarily the first thing that I would recommend. I would say contact a career advisor. So you can contact myself. I'm always happy to help any students via Ambrose. You can contact folks in the community even through my center with the City of Calgary Youth Employment Center, or you can even chat with the folks here on campus through pastoral services or through the Student Success Center. We are all here as a team to support this journey that you're on. And really, I think that's how folks need to look at it, as not just this one big time event, this one big decision that you're going to make. Sometimes the career path that we initially choose isn't where we end up, and that's totally okay. But if you really are feeling like you need to hit that pause button, I guess speaking with somebody who has knowledge in career development and career planning can help you really dissect, okay, what was it that brought you to this career choice in the first place? What were you hoping to get out of that career? And then making a plan for next steps. And if it means leaving university, if it means taking some time off, then at least you understand why you're making that decision rather than a knee-jerk reaction. The other thing that they can do is to really expose you to what a career really looks like. I think oftentimes we have a preconception of what the field will look like, but we don't really actually know. And so then encouraging you to talk to experts or people who are actually working in the field, and that can be accessed through career planning and through career development as well. So those would be the things that I would recommend right off the hop. First of all, don't panic. Second of all, don't drop out of university. Third of all, surround yourself with that support network that you have available both here at Ambrose and in the community. And let's start talking, start the dialogue, and let's make a plan for next steps. Then, I have had those students who've come to me as well. My parents think I'd be a great accountant, but I want to be an artist. Or my parents want me to be a doctor, but I really want to be a social worker. What should I do? And so I guess it depends on where you are in your education. Sometimes it just does make sense that as you figure that out through your education, that to finish the education stream that you're on. Other times, though, if you're at the very, very beginning, again, I think it would make sense to really speak with your career advisor, or again, contacting pastoral services or the Student Success Center here on campus, and really talking through what the conflict, that internal conflict is that you're having in terms of meeting your parents' expectations versus filling your own expectations and desires. And so if the decision really does become then that, I do not want to be that doctor, I do not want to be that accountant, then I think career planning is the next best step in that decision process, in terms of why is it that you feel like this other career path is the better choice for you personally. I think then having the conversation with your parents will make more sense, where it will not feel like a knee-jerk reaction to your parents, if you can really support with documentation and research as to why this would be a good career for you. So again, going back to our first plan, don't panic. Second of all, seek out the support network. And then let's really figure out how we can support you in making the best decision for yourself, and how to make that work for everyone involved.
Thanks, Cecilia.
You bet.
It can be tricky sometimes, and sometimes we have to stick out something that maybe we didn't want to, or we're not finding as exciting right now. Ideally, though, if we can, we want to find work that aligns with our interests and abilities. That's not always easy. So we might find ourselves asking questions like this. So something like this, like, I've heard about career assessments that like assess maybe my skills or my interests or my values. If I take an assessment, will it tell me what job or career to aim for? Or things like, we might want to find out about a career, and we know a little bit about it on paper, but we don't necessarily know what it feels like to be in that career. So I think I'm interested in health sciences. How can I find out more about it? How do I know what it's really like to work in that field? And then the third question, kind of similar in a way, how do I find a career that works with my lifestyle and my commitments? And how do I balance that out with like my interests and all of that? So these are questions that we might think about when we're thinking about how to find work that matches our own interests, abilities, desires. What advice would you give us here?
Okay, those are also some fantastic questions. I often get, and all of us at the Youth Employment Center get that question. I just came to get an assessment so that I can get a career. We get that all the time. So if I take an assessment, will it tell me what job or career to aim for? So not exactly. So what you need to understand about career assessments is that they're based on interests, and they'll generate a list of careers that match well based on your interests and values that match to those who are actually working in that career. So let's use our earlier example of an accountant. If your assessment shows, as one of the jobs that you would be a good accountant, what that basically means is that you have a lot of the same or similar interests and values, and that's why that career is popping up. So those are the things that you want to keep in mind, and that it's not this magical bullet of, here's this list and it will tell me what I should do. It's basically a multi-step process, and there's other pieces of the career planning process that need to be considered when we're looking at a career. It's your interests, it's your values, it's lifestyle choices that you want to make down the road. And so I would think I'd like to address that lifestyle piece right now in that question. How do I find a career that works with my lifestyle and commitments? That ties right into question one, in terms of again, that it's not that just this one-time decision that you're going to make, and your life is not a bunch of silos where you have your personal life and your working life and your friends and family life. All of these things overlap, and so therefore your values and your interests and the things that are important to you are going to touch on all those things, including your career. So therefore, I think going through the career planning process, where you are actually exploring each of those areas, including doing a career assessment, but also doing research, makes most sense. And that's how you can find a career that will work well with your lifestyle and the commitments that you have. The other question that was up here was that I'm interested in XYZ. So let's say teaching. That I'm interested in being a teacher. How can I find out more about it? How do I know what it's like to work in that field? So really, I think first and foremost is, what is it that you're wanting to know? Make that list of questions. Whenever possible, try and really find out those answers from people who are actually working in the field. So probably about, I would say, 10 to 15 years ago, the show CSI first came on the scene with TV. And the number of people coming in through my doors saying, I want to be a CSI agent, was crazy. Like, everybody wanted to be a CSI agent, go to the crime scene and figure it out, and go to the lab and do all of that. And so I think the thing is that you sometimes through media and now through social media, we consume so much media. And I think we make assumptions of what a career sometimes is or what that looks like. And so I think I always call it the reality check. Go and actually talk to the people in the field, find out what it really looks like. No career is going to be 100% what you think or 100% to your satisfaction. There's going to be pieces of every career that you're not going to like. But I think if you really are informed and you really understand all those pieces, if the majority of things are something that you will love, then the few things that you might not like aren't going to be a big deal. And then you'll know that that's a good choice for you. And you'll, again, understand why you're making that decision. So I would encourage you to research, talk to the people in your network, or, again, access career services, and we can hook you up to somebody if you don't have a contact in that field.
So we have one viewer who is a first-year business student. And says that he wants to, after the business program, he wants to get certified as a chartered accountant.
Okay.
And so presumably then he should be reaching out to people in that field, getting to know some of them and asking them questions.
Absolutely. I think that starting early on is the 100% best thing that you can do as a student. I think start looking at postings now so that you understand what the requirements are of you upon completion of your degree. I often find that students will wait until they graduate to start looking at those postings and then realize there's things that maybe they should have been doing while they were in school, or perhaps, additional education or courses that they could have been taking to help build those skills and build that resume. So I think the best way to find that out is through, first of all, scanning postings, and then second of all, starting to build that network. If there's a professional association for accountants, which I'm pretty sure there is, I would say see if you can sign up as a student. Like, I know that there's lots of times there's that student option that you can sign up basically for free or for a very minimal fee. And then that way you can start to network. They might have lunch and learn sessions, and you will start to find out who the players are and who the important people are in the industry. From there, you can potentially reach out to them through a social media platform like LinkedIn. And I would probably only recommend LinkedIn as your professional networking option. And then really see if you can establish that opportunity to really connect with folks in the industry so that you know the next steps. It will also help you with the articling portion that you will be required to complete. So I hope that answers your question. If not, please let us know, and I'm happy to chat more about that. Good luck to you, though.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cecilia. And thank you, Adrian, as well, for your comment. Let's move on to our next round of questions. And again, feel free, if you're watching live, to join in with comments and questions at any time. Our next set of questions that kind of comes up for students is about today's economy. A lot of times it seems like when we're kids, we're kind of told about the classic careers, and we kind of get the impression that the workplace is kind of always the same. But the workplace is a place of many changes, and the opportunities that come up, and the way that the workplace evolves, it requires us to be flexible. And so let's ask some questions. Let's talk about what flexibility looks like in the workplace. So today's economy. A couple of questions here. First, many people change fields or careers partway through their lives. If I'm a job seeker, what should I expect? How can I be prepared knowing that the career path might not be like a straight line? And then the second question, what is the so-called gig economy and how can I prepare myself for it?
Okay, so great questions. So I'll address these questions one by one because they're similar, but still a little bit different. So in terms of changing career paths, I think the expectation that students should have now upon graduation is that potentially the market will look new and different than what our parents' generation was. No longer do we see kind of that, what we used to call the cradle to grave system, where you basically finish school, start a job, and you stay there till you retire. My generation was really thinking, you might change careers maybe 2 or 3 times. Then it was kind of up to 7 and 8 times as we move on. And now what we're really seeing is that you guys might be in an economy where you might be starting out rather than at a company, but doing more like contract work and stringing a bunch of contract work together to develop your career. So then how do you manage that? I think you manage that by having a bit of a plan. And I know we have some questions that will address that in a little bit more detail. So I'll save that answer for a little bit down the road. But if we're really looking at, okay, I am in a field and I'm looking to change, what should I do? So I think you'll be exposed to different areas within your career field as you go. And sometimes it doesn't actually mean leaving your field directly, but just changing the focus of what or who you're working with. So I have an example of a gentleman that I work with at the city. He works in the seniors department, but when you really look at his career path, he's had an amazing career as a social worker. And really what first drove him to that field was really the homeless population. And so for many years, he worked in homelessness, did amazing work serving the homeless population in Calgary, but then really started to see, this need for seniors. And so I think it's through the exposure that you get in your career. And then he made that shift, and now he's working within seniors. And so he didn't necessarily have the skill set to work with seniors right off the bat, but he took those transferable skills and moved into that direction and slowly worked towards where he could work with that population more exclusively. And so I think that's something to keep in mind, is that changing, you don't necessarily need to change fields all the way, is that a career change can be within the same field. If you are thinking of leaving a field altogether, though, I think you need to be flexible and open to see what is out there and where you can go. And the most important part of that is to have a plan. Really explore, why are you leaving the field? Are you burnt out? Is it just something you can't do anymore? Is there just no jobs anymore? Has it become obsolete? Like, really, what are the reasons for you leaving the field? Think about what you can take from the field you're currently in to the next field. You're always going to have experiences and knowledge that you have built. So you will never, ever be starting from scratch, but it's really just figuring that out. And then make sure that you're getting the right training and investigate what's the right choice for you. Lots of times I do feel that people make a knee-jerk reaction or a panic reaction to something that's happening. And so then they don't always make the best informed choice. And I would say, if you can, whenever possible, if you can make a plan and have informed choice, that is going to get you the best results. And again, if you can work with a career advisor through some of those pieces for your career change, I think is always helpful to you. So then the next part in this slide is talking about a gig economy. And so we're seeing more and more of that. And so that was a bit of that contract piece that I was talking about earlier. And so really, I just want to give you a definition of what that is first. So it's basically a labor market characterized by the prevalence of short-term contracts or freelance work as opposed to permanent jobs. So I did want people to know what that actually is, in case you weren't sure what the gig economy was. So examples of that could be, your Uber and Lyft drivers, handyman services, creative services like web designers, graphic designers, even consultants like accountants can offer their services, kind of on a short-term basis. Even home parties like Tupperware or 31 parties, hairdressers or makeup artists, like any of these kinds of jobs could be considered a gig economy. I had a student a couple of years ago who was planning on traveling to Australia, and he actually taught himself how to cut hair And that was how he was going to sustain and have some income while he was over there. And he was self-trained, and he started to get a bit of a business here in Calgary, and then basically ported his skills to Australia just so that he could travel for a year and have income. So that would be another example of that gig economy. So there's pros and cons of the gig economy. The pros really are that you are able to supplement your income with a gig economy. So you could have your day job and then moonlight as a Tupperware salesperson in the evening. So that is the beauty of that, because there's a lot of flexibility around the hours of work and the amount of work that you take on. The pay that you get could be a pro and con, because often you should be able to set some prices that you want for yourself. However, of course, it is also based on market demand and what the market's willing to pay. And then there's variety and independence in that gig economy. Some of the cons, though, it's hard to know when your next gig is going to come. So like you really have to be hitting the streets and really working hard to get your next gig lined up. And so it's not necessarily always the most sustainable and enduring way of making sure you have income. So if you have responsibilities that are required of you, then really it's making sure you're balancing, a steady flow of income with your desire to explore that gig economy. The other thing is that often the industry isn't necessarily regulated as closely. And of course, if it's not like with a company, you're not necessarily going to have benefits or healthcare. So if those things are important for you down the road, then those pieces would maybe be a con for working in the gig economy. I would say that if you decide to work in the gig economy, then know, first of all, what you're worth, know what the value is of the work that you're providing, know the skill set that you have available, and is it actually something that the gig economy would support. I would say start small and don't just rely on it for your income. Because it might not be enough to live off of. As you will see through most of my answers, it's about having a plan, and executing the plan. So hope that helps for that one.
Yeah, so it sounds like we need to be prepared to be flexible. And let's talk about a couple of ways that and we want to make sure that we can make the benefits of that flexibility work for us. And so a couple of questions kind of related to that are, first, it seems like all the jobs out there want 2 or 3 years of experience. Can I start building up experience now while I'm in school? How? And so that question kind of is like, it can be challenging. How do I prepare myself for that? And then the second question, I want to, or maybe I think I need to work internationally. Again, kind of that flexibility thing. How can I prepare?
Okay, also really great questions, and questions that I've often seen with post-secondary students. So let's again address these just one at a time. So that first question is that it seems like all the jobs out there want 2 to 3 years of experience. And this is where I was talking earlier to Adrian, I believe it was, and really make sure you start reading those postings of your desired field early. I know it's not necessarily the most entertaining thing, but Google search postings of the field that you're hoping to end up in, and really start to make sure that you understand and that you see what you're going to be required to provide upon graduation. So you are correct, is that there's lots of times that they need a minimum of 1 to 3 years of experience for a bachelor of whatever, arts, humanities, whatever degree, you need some experience. And so how then do you get that experience? So there's several ways that you can do that. I would definitely say through practicums and internships, if your program provides it, make sure you make the most of those. Don't just look at it as checking a box to get the requirement for your degree. Really invest in that experience. Challenge yourself, even if it's scary. Go out and try something that you might not necessarily know, versus picking a job that's easy and that you might have done before. The next part is volunteer. Volunteer experience is such a great way to gain experience. Oftentimes, volunteers are allowed to do things that staff members aren't. And so it's a really great way to hone your skills and skill build. take summer student positions wherever possible. These are the best ways to gain experience and build your resumes. And I find that sometimes post-secondary students are very hesitant to take summer student positions because sometimes they pay a little less than maybe serving or working on a road crew or a landscaper. And my advice is rip off the Band-Aid, because at some point you do need to get the experience, and the faster and sooner you do it, the better off you're going to be upon graduation. If you can get into one of those summer student positions, you're only going to set yourself up for success down the road. So the second part of that is also to develop your network. So by doing the practicums, the internships, the volunteer, the summer student positions, you're gaining a network in an industry that you're interested in, and you find out who the major players are. And that is how you can access the hidden job market. 80% of jobs are never, ever posted anywhere because the employer prefers to hire somebody they know. And so how are you going to know who those people are if you've never met anybody in the field and all you've done is isolated yourself in your education? Make sure that you're reaching outside. And Ambrose is amazing at supporting their students in the community and to develop you in the community. So, really take the supports that the school here is offering you to build up that experience. The second question is around international work, and I've seen that quite a bit as well. So I would say first and foremost, do your research first. Do you need to work internationally? For sure. Really, really figure out, is it a desire of yours to work internationally, or do you require it in order to really get your career going? Because sometimes it's more a personal desire than it is a need. And so there is lots of work that's being done for international agencies right here in Calgary or right here in Canada. And so you don't necessarily have to go abroad in order to gain that experience. So figure out if there's a way that you can engage in work locally with an NGO, get that local experience first before stepping abroad. If you do decide that you want to go abroad, I think the next thing is to make sure it's a reputable agency that you are going with, and to make sure that you're understanding the terms of your work contract. I've had some students return from overseas and not have the best experiences because of both those things. Either it wasn't a reputable agency or they didn't understand the expectations. And that's even as simple as teaching English as a second language overseas. So make sure you really are understanding what the expectations are. And then my final tip here is talk to those who've worked internationally before, who can provide you the tips and the tricks to getting with the right NGO, to get with the right job, so that your experience is amazing and that you can speak into other people's lives and make that impact.
Yeah. So one of the things, it's always a little scary to think about that, especially if we are kind of approaching the transition into the workforce. So that kind of brings us to the next round of questions, the big transition. So if you're joining us in the live chat, now is a great opportunity to chime in. So what are you thinking of doing after your education at Ambrose? What are you hoping for? Maybe what are you anxious about? That can be a precarious time for many of us. The shift from your post-secondary studies to the workforce. It's not always easy to navigate that shift, and you might find yourself asking questions like these. I've chosen my career and I'm in a degree that lines up with my career choice. So once I get my degree and I've graduated, I'm all set to go, right? Or is there something else I should be doing? And then the second question, I'm graduating this year and I'm worried I might not find work right away. Should I start into some more education, a graduate or professional degree right away? What would you say there, Cecilia?
Okay, so I feel like I've touched a little bit on question one already. in terms of kind of the how to go about this. So unfortunately, what we are seeing is that a degree is no longer enough to open that door. A degree is just another step in the process of getting you to, to getting your foot in the door, to getting you to that career that you're desiring. So you'll also want to ensure that during your education, I can't stress that enough, and start in the first year of university. And even if you're in your last year of university, it's never too late. Start getting experience, gaining experience some way, somehow. Again, most jobs require that you have 1 to 3 years of experience upon graduation. So it's really important to take that time to build those skills while you're in school. And again, you can do that through volunteering, summer jobs, internships, and practicums. If this is something that you're not sure about how to execute, again, career services like myself, I'm happy to sit with students and walk you through suggestions of how you can do that. Again, reaching out to student services and the Success Center here, and having opportunities. Ambrose does so much again for students. I've been an attendee at all of your practicum fairs that you've had and your job fairs. Take the opportunities that you're being provided here and really embrace them and use them to your advantage to build those skills, because yeah, unfortunately, just that degree isn't going to get the job. And I have had a lot of students who've showed up on my doorstep, with just the degree in hand and no experience. And so it's a bit of a harder go in terms of, getting into the field. The next question is one that is hotly debated. I will say that right off the bat, and not everybody will agree with my answer, but this is my answer and I will tell you why. So should I start that graduate degree right away? And my recommendation, and the staff that I work with at the Youth Employment Center would definitely say, no, do not jump into more education right away. The reason is that when you do that without getting experience, so that's the caveat right there. If you are not gaining experience, then you will basically graduate with your master's degree. And now if you look at job postings again, those hiring for master's degree positions will now not expect you to have 1 to 3 years experience, but they will expect you to have 5 to 8 years experience. So now if you've gone, let's say, from high school into a bachelor's degree, then right into a master's degree, and you haven't had the opportunity to really skill build and to gain that experience, you're making it a really difficult chore for yourself in terms of finding work afterwards. So if you are thinking you want to work in academia because you want to teach, in a case like that, I would say, okay, well, that makes sense because that's how you're tracking. But for probably 95% of jobs, I would say take at least 1 year off. I'm not saying don't ever do the master's degree. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just saying you need to gain some experience, especially if in your undergrad you didn't do a lot of work in your field. You really need to take some time to build the connections and the experience. So start job searching early, start networking early so you understand the job market. If you are graduating and you're worried that you won't find that job, ensure you have a solid resume and cover letter. Lots of times students don't necessarily have good documents to start with upon graduation. And so they're sending stuff out and then getting frustrated and wondering why. And so then therefore they think, okay, well, I'm not getting a job. There is no job. So therefore I should take a master's degree. Perhaps really slow down, hit the pause button, as I like to say, and just have a minute and really, let's just sit with a career professional if you want, or again, the support services that are here on campus, and really let's go through piece by piece in terms of your step. Is your plan valid, and does it make sense? And like I said, create that solid resume and cover letter. Be open to getting a part-time or contract position, even if it's a more junior position than what you're qualified for. Sometimes you need that more junior position in order to just get your foot in the door. Really, I would say just educate yourself before you make, again, that knee-jerk reaction. I find sometimes the reason for people wanting to take a graduate degree right away is that it's fear of the unknown. And you know what? It's okay to be scared. It is okay to see this as this daunting next step, and that, all of that, we understand that. But again, all of us are here to support you, and know that you've got a solid education behind you. And really, let's figure out, how we can make that transition the best possible transition for you. So whether or not you agree or not, I would say no to that master's degree right away. Just take some time to work.
Okay, so it's always a little scary to think about transitions, but that can be especially difficult in our current situation. With the COVID-19 pandemic, many of us are concerned about our employment and our finances, our loans, all of those things, both right now and also in the long term. So Cecilia, I have a couple of questions for you kind of surrounding that. So first, what changes have you seen in the Canadian job market since COVID-19 began? And then kind of thinking about that, some things will kind of return to the way they were at some point, but some things might be permanent. What things do you think might stick around? And how can I prepare myself for a post-COVID-19 workplace?
Right. I mean, that definitely is a hot topic right now. And so our job market has really taken a hit and taken a brunt. And so we are starting to see some very slow recovery in the career development world. And so we are excited to see that. I think as people start to invest in the economy again, we're going to see the job market open up more and more. Um, our provincial and federal governments are, I think, trying to support and buoy the economy the best that they can to try and encourage growth in the market. So we are seeing some positives, maybe not as fast as we would like. So here's, I think, maybe just on a side note, I think this would be not something I would always recommend, but because of the situation is something I would recommend now. If you are maybe in your last year and you could spread your last year over 2 years and potentially, take courses over the next 2 years and maybe work part-time, that might be in your best interest while we wait for the economy to recover a bit more. It's a hard market for post-secondary students to enter right now because you are competing against people who have experience that have been laid off and are looking for work. And that's not to discourage you. And so that's why I'm giving you that kind of that second plan of, there is the option to kind of extend your education for another year. Not necessarily by taking that master's degree, but by just extending your bachelor degree that you're currently in, and just picking up some part-time work, and potentially, trying to build some more skills and some more contacts. So if you are choosing to graduate and finish, I totally understand that as well. I think then the thing is you need to be even more targeted when job searching. You have to be willing to take entry level work, even if you have the experience doing it. Even if you are overqualified for the position, I would say you need to definitely be willing to take the jobs where they're at, be open to being, in a position that's short term or contract, and sometimes for lower pay and no benefits, just to allow you to be able to get that work experience. I would encourage you to get that network and to access what I call the hidden job market, what we call the hidden job market. I have a friend who was laid off in April, and he was looking for 5 months, and he was doing, I feel, everything right. He was accessing the services that had been provided by his company while he was laid off, accessing career services, various career services, headhunters, etc. And it was finally a job that was in that hidden job market from a company who didn't have a posting anywhere, who ended up hiring him. And he started actually his job yesterday in computers. Like, he's a computer guy. And and it's amazing and super exciting for him. But it did take him 5 months. And so, it's how do you know where the jobs are and are not if you don't have a network? And so again, it's really creating that network around yourself. Have some flexibility around how the work is done. I think sometimes we are definitely stuck in the, well, this is not how we used to work. And you're right, I struggle with it every day because the technology for me sometimes is moving a bit faster. But I think having the flexibility to be willing to work from home or different locations, remote locations, or working via technology. I think lots of our the generation that's in school is very open to that because you guys use so much technology at school. Having computer literacy, I think, is going to be key to be able to adapt to the changing nature of work. And really figuring out how to work. So my nephew Josh is a youth pastor in Edmonton at Hope City Church, and they have a huge campus and they have a huge youth group. And so when the pandemic hit, I mean, he was only in that job for, I think, 5 months. And so, here his responsibility became to speak into these youth lives and to figure out, still how to stay connected when, we weren't allowed to see anybody. So him and one of the other pastors figured out how to make a YouTube channel, right? And to provide online, services for youth through social media, even providing incentives for participation, because of course people participate passively when it's on social media. So, every industry had to pivot and figure out how to adapt and change. And I would say if you can dig deep and figure out how to do that, that's going to be the key. So in terms of the changes that I think potentially could be permanent, I think that the technology piece, I think will only become more, not less. I think potentially the short-term contracts for the foreseeable future will definitely be something that exists. And I think that can be an opportunity for somebody who really wants to, take that opportunity to get a lot of different experiences. And I think having to be adaptable and flexible is something that we're all going to have to, that I think that will be a permanent state of the economy, that we need to be able to be agile and be able to pivot when we need to. So then how to prepare yourself for the post-COVID workplace. Again, I think being proactive and ensuring that you're building the relationships and making the contacts whenever possible. Get to know your profs. These people know a lot of other people, and if you're asking for these profs to give you a reference, you actually need to know them and they need to know you so they can speak about you and give you that glowing reference. But they also will have industry contacts that they're willing to share for students who invest, and are really interested in getting to know them, and vice versa. Skill build. I can't say that enough. Take additional training, do volunteer work, whatever it takes to get those skills, to augment your degree. Try to have a bit of a rough plan, but build in contingencies. If the plan A doesn't work, what else can you do so that you're not reacting, but you're being really proactive. Be open to opportunities, even if you're not totally comfortable with them. Talk to alumni. Some of your alumni are amazing, and talk to them. And again, join those professional associations because those can be a wealth of information. So those are just some ways I think that you can prepare yourself, and hopefully, you will succeed and flourish.
We're coming to the end of our time, so I do want to thank you, Cecilia, for participating today. It's been a pleasure. Also, for those of you participating online, it's been delightful to hear from you. If you have any last questions, feel free to type them into the chat. I do know that Cecilia and the whole Student Academic Success team here at Ambrose would love to support you if you have further questions or if you'd like to chat about the next steps of your professional career. So to connect with us, you can send an email to studentsuccess@ambrose.edu, and we'll make sure that email gets to the right place. If you want to get in touch with Cecilia, we'll make sure that you get in touch with her as well. We would also encourage you to watch for our upcoming career development workshops, both here on YouTube, and then we also have some that are offered as a combination of Zoom and in-person workshops. To find out information about any of those things, you can go to ambrose.edu/workshops. You'll also find out about our Lions Pride program, which is an opportunity to earn bonuses by participating in these sessions. I'm not seeing any questions, any additional questions in the live chat. So we'll wrap up for now. But please, if you think of questions afterwards, please email us at studentsuccess@ambrose.edu. Thank you again for joining us today, and bye for now.